Hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of Canada's Drag Race Season 2, Episode 4. I've got my Madonna wig on, or as I call this look, Fat Madonna, and some red makeup and purple glitter lips, which was my drag queen name in high school. And before we get started, of course, there's no starting without Jorge, drink me! Oh! Coke and tequila, Coke Zero. I could tell because there was a lime. Oh, sorry, I'm going to take one more sip. I love this. I haven't had Coke Zero in a while. It's one of my favorites, I'm just saying. All right, let's get started. Well, I don't know if it was a fond farewell that Stephanie got, but as Canada's Drag Race's first queen from Calgary, even though the queens were sorry to see her go, they were pretty happy about still being in the race. I'm so serious. Speaking of, the queens congratulated Cynthia on surviving the lip sync, but they seem more impressed at Cynthia not clocking Stephanie right in the mush maker when she whipped that, what was that, a purse? I'm going to call it a purse at her head. Not that Cynthia did it on purpose, allegedly. Of course, Adriana was congratulated on her first win of the season, and she took that moment to warn the other queens not to sleep on her. She's silent, but deadly. Hey, we've all been there. Some more silent than others. The next day in the workroom, the remaining 9 queens reflected on the whirlwind that has been season 2 so far and asked Eve how it felt to be in the top. Did anyone else sense a finally at the end of that sentence? Just me? Regardless, Eve announced that she was going to win this week. Well, it's good to have dreams. Geometric was also congratulated for being in the top, and it's her second week in a row, so she too was ready for a win. But in true Eve form, Eve doubted it would happen out loud. And then she laughed. She was the only one, God bless Eve. Every dog has her day, but 1 week in the top is lucky. 2 weeks in a row, well, that shows at least some skills, I'm just saying. You better recognize Eve. Seriously. Thankfully, Rue's video message stopped the girls from responding to Eve. This week's message was about dying and living and something about Drake. I really wasn't paying attention, but thankfully, Brooklyn showed up to make sense of it all. And this week, she brought a mini challenge, and not just any mini challenge, because the library was open for a reading challenge, because reading is what? Fundamental, yes it is. I don't know about you, but I feel the art of reading is dying, and it's doing a loud, slow swan song, if you ask me. The quality and cleverness of reads in the last few years of Drag Race have really gone downhill, and this was no different, I hate to say. Kimora Amor did okay, but I really expected more from her. Gia took a long walk to get to the point of her reads, and, well, I wasn't interested in waiting, seriously. Adriana read Gia for serving Gigi goodness, but then that was just a matter of time. I went to the bathroom during Eve's read, but then so did she. Pathia didn't read as much as spill some tea on Sookie Doll. Sookie's read of Kimora was, well, more convoluted than it really needed to be, bless. Kendall tried to read Isis on her wardrobe. Well, she shouldn't have. Isis reminded Kendall that, well, her look was the worst of last week, and even looked to Brooklyn for corroboration. Brooklyn Heights couldn't recall. Coward. Isis read everyone to filth, but her read about Eve not being embarrassed by who she is, that was her parents' job, was gold. Seriously. Finally, Cynthia read Brooklyn on her fillers and Kendall for having gray tits. I didn't get the Kendall read, but from the sounds coming from the other queens, I suspect it was an inside joke. I mean, it even forced Brooklyn into the dying swan pose, so I'm guessing it must have been a good read. But clearly not good enough, because when the library was closed officially, Brooklyn announced that Isis Couture was the winner. Personally, I think Brooke skipped over Cynthia due to that filler read. Just me? And then it was time for Brooklyn to announce this week's maxi challenge, the Snatch Game. Right away, the queens got to organizing their celebrity looks. Eve said this was the challenge she'd been waiting for, and was ready for a win. Long wait. As someone who definitely knows what not to do in a Snatch Game, Brooklyn was back to share her knowledge with the queens one-on-one. Her first stop was Isis Couture, who revealed that she was going to be portraying La Veneno, Spanish trans icon. But as she described her to Brooke, I got a sense that she really didn't know who she was. Just me? Bethia told Brooke that she was portraying Canadian singer and wife of Elon Musk, Grimes. I'd never heard of her myself, but that just confirms that she's Canadian. Adriana shared that she was doing Sofia Vergara, and I was immediately worried because, another Latin queen, Cynthia Lee Fontaine, tried to do Sofia and failed miserably. Fingerdoo's crossed that that's not the case for Adriana. Seriously. Suki Doll told Brooke that she was doing Yoko Ono, and I was instantly impressed. Such an original idea, and if anyone could pull it off, I thought Suki could do it. Kimora was going to be doing Leslie Jones, but I felt her choice of using a Coming to America look from the movie was a touch confusing out of the gate. Still, I liked it as a choice. Gia was going to do Jim Carrey, and I knew instantly she was going to fail. Mostly because she sounded more like Aiden Zane. Boo. Personally, I wish she'd gone with her second choice, which was Anna Faris. Am I the only one? Kendall's choice was Kris Jenner. Of course it was. Cynthia told Brooke that she was doing Rachel Zoe, whom apparently Brad Gorski worked for at some point in the history of the world. I'm not sure if Cynthia was being brave or obtuse. Who can say? She's from Vancouver. Eve told Brooklyn she's known for her Jennifer Coolidge, so obviously she was going to do Bernie Sanders. No, me either. Before the queens hit the snatch, they hit the red carpet with Tracy Melcourt to take their impressions out for a spin. This red carpet thing is unique to Canada's Drag Race, but I wish that more franchises would adopt it because I feel like it gives the queens a chance to warm up their impersonations. I'm just saying. And then it was on to the Snatch Game with celebrity contestants Brad Goreski and Bowmanizer. I don't know who that is. The one running theme with a few of the queens was pretending that they had no idea who Brooklyn Heights was. Pythia called her Jane Lynch, Kimora called her White RuPaul, and, well, Kendall just called her Ellen. As for the rest of the queens, I was impressed with Gia's makeup for Jim Carrey as Ace Ventura, and I thought Eve's Bernie looked fantastic. Suki Doll's Yoko and Isis's La Veneno also looked fabulous. It's just that, well, none of them were very funny. And, in all fairness, I don't remember anything Adriana did as Sofia Vergara, but I think that's as much out of kindness as her terrible performance. Just saying. The one queen who did impress me was Cynthia Kiss's Rachel Zoe. I still have no idea who Rachel Zoe is, and I'm totally fine with that. But from an entertaining point of view, Cynthia killed it. She was funny, consistent, and seemed to make everyone else in the room laugh. Here's to Cynthia Kiss. The whole point of Snatch Game. All in all, it wasn't the worst Snatch Game, but it was far from the best. Something that a few of the queens were feeling as they were getting ready for the runway. Okay, mostly Eve, but as she set herself up for failure. She had a lot of big talk about winning the Snatch Game, yet delivered a very middle-of-the-road performance. Suki seemed to try to tell Eve to not get into her own head, which was clearly the wrong thing to say, as Eve claimed she couldn't control the situation. Suki seemed to be over it by this point and told Eve that she absolutely could control it. That's when Eve went off on her "I don't need a pep talk right now" rant. Personally, I think Eve should learn to read a room. Suki wasn't trying to pep her up. If anything, she was blaming Eve for her own failure. Something Eve was clearly not interested in hearing. She should have tried harder. I'm just saying. Suki then went on about how she developed her big personality because there was no representation for her when she was growing up, something that Kimora was more than familiar with as well. Pythia went as far as to say that if she knew this lifestyle were an option as a child, she would have had an easier time growing up. Apparently, there are no gay people in Greece, despite what history tells us. Oh, come on. I grew up in a Greek neighborhood. I heard the whispers. True, I didn't understand the whispers, but they were there nonetheless. By the way, Greek whispers, was my drag queen name in high school. Needless to say, Pythia got emotional explaining her journey to the room. And then it was time for the runway. Brooklyn looked great in her yellow fantasy. Brad Gorski and Tracy Melchor were at the judges' table, along with Connor Jessup and his eyeliner. Category is Made in Canada. Looks inspired by Canadian celebrities. Kimora was serving Deborah Cox as Josephine Baker if she were in a Caribbean parade, and I was living for it. Fingerdoo for all those women. And the color yellow. Loved it. Seriously. Cynthia Kiss was serving Jeannie Becker Realness in a yellow suit, complete with microphone. Although, I don't think Jeannie ever wore her hair like that. Still, Fingerdoo for Cynthia. Sookie Doll was serving Sandra Oh in Double Happiness Realness. And although I've not seen that film, I still gave Sookie a Fingerdoo. I'm just saying. Adriana was channeling Vanessa Morgan's Shannara Chronicles character, Lyria. Don't feel badly if nothing I said made sense to you. I have no idea what I'm talking about either. Still, this was a fairly lackluster look for me, so I had to give Adriana a finger don't. Especially after last week's stunner of a look, I'm just saying. You set the bar too high there, Adriana. Say it. Geometric was serving Gigi Good as Mike Myers in all of the Austin Powers movies, and, well, I loved it. Enough to give it a finger do anyway, I'm just saying. Kendall Stacey McKenzie disappointed me out of the gate. The proportions of the wig were off, and for such abuse of the international catwalk scene, there was no hint of Stacey's signature walk in Kendall's presentation, but there was no denying who she was trying to look like, so I had to give her a finger do, but just the tip. Eve was channeling Carrie-Anne Moss a la The Matrix. Well, her look anyway. As a fan of The Matrix, I can tell you that Carrie-Anne's character, Trinity, would never have worn those sunglasses or that hair, ever. And don't even get me started on the jewelry, I'm just saying. Sorry, but I couldn't let this one pass. Finger don't for Eve, just saying. I didn't get Isis's homage to Sandra Oh's role in Grey's Anatomy. I mean, don't get me wrong. She looked gorgeous, but there was nothing Sandra Oh about it. I felt that Isis already had this costume sitting around at home and just made it work, stuck it into a category and crossed her fingers. Speaking of, I did give her a finger do because it was stunning. As the only Canadian in the world who's still not watched Schitt's Creek, I had no idea what was going on with Pythia's runway, but it was so conceptual and unique that I had to give it a finger do. I mean, those boots alone, come on. Catherine O'Hara really dressed like that? And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Brooke announced that Kimora, Cynthia, Adriana, Sookie, Eve, and Pythia were in the top and bottom positions this week, which left Kendall, Isis, and Gia safe. So they frigged off. Kimora was judged first. For the most part, everyone enjoyed her Leslie Jones, but Connor said it was mostly one note. Brooke agreed, but pointed out that Leslie is that one note. As for her runway, Tracy loved how she commanded it by taking her time and making them all look at her. Look at me! Cynthia was next, and for someone who, for good or bad, worked so closely with Rachel Zoe, Brad couldn't say enough about how good her performance was, and everyone agreed. As for her runway, Tracy felt that Cynthia didn't just do an impersonation of Jeannie Becker, she channeled her essence. Hope she washes her hands. Adriana was next. Brad was impressed with how she interpreted Vanessa Morgan for the runway, while Tracy felt, well, she missed the mark with her Sofia Vergara on Snatch Game. Sadly, that's not a lie. Sookie was next under the microscope, and all of the judges agreed that her Yoko was, well, less than impressive, but they all loved her Sandra Oh, particularly that mini trench, I'm so serious. And no, Minnie Trench was not my drag queen name in high school. It was Maxie Trench! Up next was Eve, and for the most part, all the judges liked her Bernie Sanders. She just wasn't funny. As for her runway, Brooklyn loved it, but Connor thought that her wig was basic and flat. Eve loved that. In fact, Eve clapped back at Connor. Brave. Pythia was last but not least. Everyone was impressed with her Grimes in the Snatch Game. Tracy was particularly impressed by Pythia's runway, calling it iconic, and Brooklyn was impressed by the work that had gone into it. Seriously, look at those crow feet boots. Crow feet boots. That's nobody's name. Back in the Untucked Lounge, Adriana wasn't feeling very secure after her Snatch Game critique. Eve was still feeling crusty over Connor's comment about her basic wig being flat, which came off as whining to some of the other queens. Okay, well, mostly Isis. Someone who got a harsher critique, Suki Doll, was dealing with the news like a pro. It was what it was, and she wasn't going to make excuses now. The other queens were very impressed with her positive attitude, and then Suki said the most profound thing. As a reviewer of Drag Race, I've often complained about eliminated queens complaining that they didn't get to show their best, but they did. Every challenge is that opportunity. If you fall short, that's on you. Suki eloquently said that that attitude is privilege, and she's totally right. She had her chance to show her stuff. She took a big swing, and it fell short. End of story. Here's to Miss Suki for owning her drag and her choices. Well done, doll. Back on the main stage, it was announced that this week's winner was Miss Cynthia Kiss. From the bottom last week to the top this week. Now that's swinging for the fences, I'm just saying. Sadly, this week's bottom two were one of my faves, Suki Doll and Eve 6000. This week, they had to lip sync to Happiness by Capri. This is a pretty basic lip sync for me. Neither of the queens did anything to impress me. In fact, I was worried when Eve popped open her coat. Her tights were pulled up higher than her leggings, and I found that distracting. But she still seemed to dance it out a little more than my girl Suki. So, when it was announced that Eve shantaed, and at least this time her tears made sense, let me just say that, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. But I wasn't surprised. Of course, that meant we had to say goodbye to Suki far too soon, in my opinion. Here's to Suki. Good swing to the fences, girl. I miss her. So, what did you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Did the right queen go home? Did Suki and Eve even deserve to be in the bottom? All we can do is tune in to RuPaul's Drag Race next week to see how it all plays out. And then, when you're done, you come on back so you and I can compare notes. And before you go, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. While you're down there, don't forget to click on any of the links to support this channel, including my Redbubble store, where we've got five, I tell you, new Lar d'Azusa designs, and the Denise Journeau holiday collection available, as well as Denise's Wilma Railroad design that raises money for Rainbow Railroad. Until next week, miss me? Mwah. Seriously, Jorge. It's a hell of an episode. I have to be honest, I thought Eve's Snatch Game was better than Adriana's, so I was a little surprised that Adriana wasn't in the bottom up against Suki. Suki was pretty bad in the Snatch Game, bless her. She just wasn't funny. She looked good. That Eve is just starting to wear on me. I don't know, she knows exactly the right thing to say to make everyone hate her. I can't believe that Suki was trying to be supportive and she barked at her. These are the moments that I wish the judges could see how these queens act in the workroom, because I'm sure they don't. I'm sure they don't see it. I'm sure they also don't care. They don't want to know the drama. But I wish that there was a judge's edit, like a reel that they got to watch just to see, you know, who was playing fair and who was being a bitch. I mean, I can't even imagine if they watch it after the fact, if they care that much. They get paid, they don't care. I'd like to think the Canadian judges care a little more.